And welcome to Career Coaching After Hours with me, your host, John Davidson. Once again, thank you for joining me. It's already episode 9. I can barely believe it. I think I say that just about every episode. So we're still here in season 1 in the new series. I hope you're having fun. Happy August, everyone. It's the final day of the month. Many of you will be seeing this, of course, here in September. But I appreciate you joining me because this episode I'm excited for. There's a lot of really interesting topics that have been popping up about ghost jobs and the economy lately. So some of you might be wondering why I'm talking about ghosts here in August or in late summer, maybe early fall. I almost pushed this into October, but we've been seeing a lot in the news about not just ghost jobs, but vanishing jobs or disappearing jobs. Some kind of general spookiness in the job market and some of the Bureau of Labor statistics and unemployment numbers out there. So I didn't feel like I could push this one off. So my apologies. I may have to scooch some of the topics I've hinted at in some of my previous episodes. But I think we'll have some fun today, and I'll be joined by my ghost buddies here as we talk about ghost jobs. What are they? How to spot them? And how do they influence maybe the bigger picture in terms of the labor market or the economy? So great topics to dive into, and I've got some good resources to share with you as well. A few questions we'll be tackling. Why are there so bleeping many ghost jobs out there now? And I've heard this from several folks. It seems like there maybe are more of them here in 2024 than maybe last year or in years previous. And what's the deal with all these disappearing jobs we're hearing about? And what can we believe? What can we trust? Are there some ghosts in the machine, perhaps? And of course, I've got a deep dive into this because bustin makes me feel good. I'm going to try really hard to use that phrase judiciously throughout the presentation. I'll do my very best. And again, Career Coaching After Hours. What is this series? It's audience agnostic. So of course I'm a career coach and career counselor based here in the Seattle area, and I may or may not be your career coach or career counselor. So I hope this is useful to you, whether you're a job seeker or maybe you're a career coach who's starting out in your profession. And so this series is more of a series of kind of mediating the news, meditation, kind of expanding on articles I've written about, topics I've written about. I've certainly touched on ghost jobs before, and yes, of course, there will be music. Thank you very much, Ghost Rifter, for today's tracks. And like I say, standard disclaimers. If you want some direct advice for you, you might want to ask an expert and talk to a career coach or career counselor and have them chat with you about your situation. Of course, check your sources. I've got some sources here in the presentation, and they'll be in the notes there on YouTube as well. All right, let's dive on into it. I mean, what is a ghost job? So it's not exactly a new term. And at the beginning of this year, 2024, I did a almost tongue-in-cheek corporate lingo guidebook. And so there'll be a link to that with a bunch of phrases that seem to have popped up kind of during and after the pandemic to try to make sense of this crazy world. So we started hearing more about ghost jobs or rage applying or RTO, those kind of things where probably the phrase did exist before, but it really came into the vernacular or the lexicon a little bit later. But I do believe there are different types of ghost jobs, as in some may just be a mistake where somebody maybe forgot to take down a job posting. But I also believe there's some pretty good evidence to show that there are some very nefarious types of ghost jobs that are absolutely purposeful. Eek. So I think there's some different categories we should probably be aware of. And I believe it really is more than just a frustrating issue for job seekers in that regard. And of course, my ghost buddies are going to pop in throughout the presentation. We'll see if I remember when they pop up. Textbook definition of a ghost job. Well, here's my tongue-in-cheek version of it. A job seeker sees a job, they apply and hear nothing. And so maybe that's one of the most frustrating things I hear about these ghost jobs is a legitimate job seeker sees a job. Maybe it's a Fortune 500 or a reputable company. They apply to it and they just don't hear back. And for one way or the other. And you could argue in that instance, maybe you just weren't chosen, Or maybe it wasn't even a real job. Or perhaps, maybe we all heard this before, is quote unquote, they just posted the job because they kind of felt like they had to, and maybe already had someone in mind. But you know what? It could be an actual job busting ghosts. I could imagine that that's possible. So if you're in a job interview, you might just want to ask, for example, if in fact this is a real job, assuming you make it to the interview stage, and make sure in fact you don't have to strap a proton pack onto your back. Although that might be a blast. And so there's some really interesting stories that have been popping up in the media. This is actually from CNBC. They did a really nice kind of overview of what ghost jobs are and kind of what's going on. So I think that's worth watching. I'd say give that a whirl. Well worth your time. There's another really interesting article that popped up from Fortune, which almost makes me sad to hear that so many recruiters feel like they're being pushed or nudged to post jobs that are ghost jobs, or even that they're kind of being whistleblowers. And so we're seeing that. More than 8 in 10 recruiters say they post ghost jobs. And so, as in somebody is purposely posting a job, maybe for the wrong reasons. And so I know it can be very hard to be in a career search or a job search, whatever your background might be or what your goals might be. And so this concept that there are folks actually posting fake jobs, essentially jobs that don't really exist, can be incredibly frustrating. And I think we can make some good arguments that it hurts all of us and maybe skews information that the Federal Reserve or that employment professionals need to make good decisions. And so I'd say check that article out as well. Of course, I won't read it to you here, but I will pull up a stat here. About 81% of recruiters say their employers post these ghost jobs or positions that either don't exist or are already filled. And I think that's a really interesting distinction. So a ghost job could be something that maybe never did exist. Perhaps it was an idea or a project, maybe it didn't fully get funded, or perhaps it's already filled and perhaps recruiters or human resources want to try to stack their bench a little bit with some other candidates. Perhaps if it doesn't work out, perhaps they hire someone, but they want a little bit of an insurance policy. And so I think this figure, arguably pretty interesting statistic there. Vast majority of recruiters suggesting that they actually see this or do this. So I think, again, perhaps worth taking that with a grain of salt. Maybe that statistic doesn't fully consider last year's data or what might be happening here later this year in 2024. So why do we care about ghost jobs? Like I mentioned, that CNBC article I think makes some really nice points in terms of how it muddies some of the jobs report. And career coaches, career counselors like me, I try to keep an eye on national statistics as well as local. So I think it's a great point to make there, distinction of just because the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, or Department of Labor, DOL, suggests some national stats, maybe take that with a grain of salt. Maybe that's something that doesn't necessarily influence your particular situation as a job seeker in your area, considering what types of jobs you're looking at. But I think some good points is if banks or companies are trying to make some decisions on macro data, then maybe we really do want accurate data. And how can it be accurate if we have so many companies? 8 out of 10 recruiters saying their companies do this? Oh my gosh. So can we get accurate data? And of course, nobody wants to say the R word. We don't want to say that we're in a recession or heading towards one. But certainly, if you've been reading the news the last couple of months, there have been some interesting indicators, yay or nay on that. But certainly jobs get pulled into the equation. I'm not an economist. I just play one on TV. Thank you very much, Ghost Buddy. But like I said before, I believe there are some different categories of ghost jobs. I think it's helpful to keep that in mind. So in some cases, are they ephemeral? What if it's just a leftover? Is that really that big of a deal? So let's say company A posts a job, they fill it, but for whatever reason they left it up on Indeed or their website or LinkedIn Premium, Glassdoor, Monster, what have you, their favorite place to advertise jobs. But like I hinted at before, and I believe this is true, I've seen some good evidence of this, is some of these sinister issues where, for example, a company might want to look more profitable, and so they might post a whole host of jobs, maybe project manager jobs or sales jobs, so that perhaps their competitors think they're in a better position, or maybe a potential suitor, maybe they're trying to get bought out. And so I think that's pretty nefarious. But maybe the worst possible ghost job is just a bad faith posting, as in the job isn't real, there really is no intentionality of hiring, and then maybe that employer goes a bit deeper and actually does some bad faith interviews. And that could be maybe to gain free market research or gather some intel. What are people getting paid? What are they working on? Eek, yikes. So if you feel, for example, that an interview process is a little bit suspicious, maybe bow out. So maybe not always easy to tell, but fair warning for anybody in the job market. So spotting ghost jobs. I get this question a lot, and I don't know if anybody's got a perfect track record of this. Certainly I don't. But if you were to show me a series of job advertisements or job descriptions online, these are 5 things that I might do to double or triple check and try to figure out what's going on. So one might be trust but verify, especially at the laundromat. And so I've talked about that in other episodes. Laundromat being your Monsters, your Glassdoors, your Indeeds, job boards, where the board is really driven by jobs. Maybe you're looking for jobs, maybe not looking to work, let's say, at Microsoft or a Boeing or an Amazon or a Starbucks, a major employer where you live. So can you follow an open job down the rabbit hole? So quite an easy way to do this is if you see a job on Indeed or Glassdoor or Monster or Career Builder, maybe circle back to that organization's website and see if it's actually still there. I'm amazed that a lot of people don't do this. Of course, there's some great sites to look at for jobs, but you may want to double check and kind of follow that down the rabbit hole. Another thing to look for, number 2, some job descriptions will actually have the name of the person or an email address or a phone number of someone who actually posted the job, maybe a human resources professional, or heck, even hr@abccompany.com, some kind of a mailbox that you can circle back with. And this does kind of tie into some of the other issues there. Like number 4, as far as a spotting technique, is LinkedIn Premium. Take a look to see if somebody is actually tagged to that. So if you see that John Davidson is posting a job on behalf of a company and I look legitimate, then maybe that's a sign that it's a real job and a real human's attached to it, and then you can circle back. Number 3, time. Classic one to look for. Again, sometimes we're lucky enough and we know when a job was posted. Sometimes we only see an end date or a date where you have to get the application materials in. But sometimes we actually can see how long it's been on the market. If it's been on the market for weeks, months, or quarters, that might be a giveaway that it's kind of this open cattle call, if you will. Again, number 4, 3 or 4 figure applicant pools. A lot of times LinkedIn Premium can be quite helpful, and we get a sense of how long that job has been posted, and if we're into maybe the hundreds or even the early thousands of applicants. I have seen 4-figure applicant pools on LinkedIn where my initial assumption, I'd like to believe they just forgot about the job, perhaps, but hopefully it's not a bad faith type of ghost job. Number 5 is specificity, and this one can be a bit tricky, but if you do see a job description that seems hyper-focused on a skill set or requires very exacting instructions in terms of application process or skill set, you could argue maybe that's more of an internal role that folks maybe felt like they had to post to the outside world. And so I'd like to believe if somebody sees a job description, it's a meritocracy, but maybe that's not always the case. All right, and my ghost buddies are popping up to help me. Gosh, they're spooky. But I think one of the really interesting issues now in 2024, what about ghost jobs affecting the bigger picture? And what in the world is going on out there? So, for example, the July 2024 jobs report, not so good. So we're seeing some numbers that suggest that maybe the job market is a little tougher for job seekers. And we're seeing some interesting articles where some employers are maybe tightening up on return to office or taking away some of the perks that were heretofore offered. But now we're even seeing revisions to some of these federal numbers that maybe make the job market look even a little bit spookier or spookier. And so here's some interesting headlines. Again, these are right in the notes there as far as some of the references and other articles to follow up on. But if you take a look there on the left, New York Post, vanishing jobs. What in the world is the Labor Department doing? And maybe revising these numbers to the point where we're not talking about tens of thousands of jobs, but into the seven-figure range. And you might have seen the article from the Washington Post that this was all just a technical error. And yet we're getting some outrage and some anger and some real frustration from Wall Street and the Fortune 500 neighborhood about what in the world is going on with these revisions. And they're revisions kind of going in the wrong way. But you'll see there's a Bloomberg report there where Labor Department recognizing the release of job data has been a little odd, but kind of pointing to the concept of just a glitch. It wasn't intentional kind of thing. But I think this is a really interesting stat here from, again, New York Post. Latest data shows the initial estimates of job growth for the year ending in March 24 were overestimated by 1.2 million. That's a big number. Now we're into the seven-figure territory. So again, not just a few hundred or a few thousand. I thought that was really surprising. I was shocked by that. So again, even I look at this data in terms of what I do for my profession. But that was a third of all supposed job growth. So maybe we all need to take a look at the data a little more clearly, even my ghost buddy friends. And like I mentioned, the Washington Post, WAPO, BLS stats suggest, well, actually it's a technical issue, and hopefully they've corrected that, but I think a really good point, and you'll see it right there, this has implications for the economy and the presidential election. So, like James Carville likes to remind us, it's the economy, stupid. And so how the job market goes, that may in fact affect inflation and lending rates and presidential elections and maybe just a general perception of how the economy is doing. And that may influence whether employers turn on the tap and do some more hiring. So I think we're going to see some really interesting behavior here for 2024, to say the least. But maybe there is a ghost in the machine, or heck, maybe some gremlins. Maybe I'm being a little too heavy-handed with the ghosts here. But one suggestion that I'd throw out is whatever stats you're looking at, it could be the JOLTS report or what have you, look at the full reports. Typically you can get a PDF of them and dig deep, so it's not just raw text, and take a look maybe a little deeper in those reports, maybe compare some of those stats, try to understand some of the distinctions they make, farm labor, non-farm labor, seasonally adjusted, what have you, but also take a look at your local stats wherever you live. And so I'm here in the state of Washington, and so I can see that, in my general area, it's about 5% unemployment. And so that's higher than some of the national numbers that we're seeing there. So good topics to dive into. And then there's what one of those PDFs look like there, which I think are much easier to read than just trying to stare at a whole bunch of text and stats and all of that. But I'll put some links in the notes there for everybody as well. So a little bit of parting advice. I'm sure we're all ready to bust some ghost jobs, and if you have some ideas on how to spot ghost jobs, absolutely let me know in the comments, or feel free to reach out to me. I think there's some other methods that may or may not work quite as well, beyond the 5 main ones I tossed out. But I think most of us agree that ghost jobs are a reality at some level, whether they're nefarious or maybe circumstantial, maybe just a mistake. But when I work with clients, it's on a one-on-one basis, so I tend to nudge folks to focus on your individual search activity. So whatever's happening at the national level, federal level, what have you, or even in your county or your state, maybe that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your search. And one could argue if anybody's out there searching for jobs, you might run into some ghost jobs and inadvertently apply to them. And maybe that's par for the course at this point, post-pandemic. But dig deeper than page 1, as in dive a little bit deeper into those stats. Like we're seeing, we saw job reports released and now they're all getting revised kind of after the fact. Good old ex post facto. And here's my pair of job search ghost buddies, which are great. Thank you so much, Canva, for helping me build them. They're adorable. Absolutely adorable. But again, thank you for joining me. The series is subject to change, but let me know, like I say, in the comments or message me. Am I on target or am I off base? Do I sound like I've gone completely bananas? Maybe I have gone completely bananas looking at all of these kind of stats over the years. And so here are a bunch of the sources that I typically cite. I'll put some specific ones out there. Absolutely feel free to message me however you like. I'm on LinkedIn. Seems like all the time. Of course, feel free to email me or visit my websites, or you can go ahead and give me a call. That's the main number. Or if you just want to check out my credentials, see if I might just know what I'm talking about. It's possible. But again, thank you very much. I thought Ghost Rifter would be perfect as far as a musical choice for this episode. So go ahead, and there's some links there to support Ghost Rifter, and appreciate them offering the ability for folks like me to use their music in their own creation. So I hope you found that enjoyable and makes my nasally voice a little more easy to digest, I hope. So again, thank you for joining me. Hope you found this interesting, enlightening, and like I say, let me know if you find some other sources that maybe I should take a look at beyond the ones that are in the notes. Thank you to my clients, to my supporters, to my students, and of course you, the viewers. So be safe out there busting those ghosts and those ghost jobs. And a quick thank you to Canva and PowerPoint for the horsepower to get these episodes maxed out. All right, take care, everyone. We'll see you next episode. All right, it's John Davidson signing out. Bye-bye.